Hello. This video addresses why does the extent of the narcissist manipulations vary? We narcissists manipulate. This comes in two broad categories: benign manipulations, malign manipulations. If you want to know whether a narcissist is manipulating you, go to the Knowledge Vault and access "Is it a manipulation?" It's very useful information. Of course, some of you will say, well, if his lips are moving, he must be manipulating. Ha 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 ha. Narcissists manipulate. We might flatter you, bribe you, compliment you, take you to lovely places, buy you gifts. We might give you a word salad, circular conversation, use physical violence against you, sexual violence against you, belittle you, triangulate you, smear you, shout at you, insult you, provoke you. Lots and lots of different ways. And if you want to learn more about various manipulations, do read my book, Manipulated, which you'll find in the Knowledge Vault and on Amazon. And there is Manipulated 2 in the pipeline as well, so look out for that. But of course, narcissists vary in terms of manipulations, dependent upon, of course, the different school that you're dealing with. But also, you might ask, why do certain manipulations vary in terms of the narcissist behaving one way with one person and one way with another? This video goes into detail to explain that to you, to furnish you with this logic. So, for instance, let's take some classic observations from the victims of narcissists. He said he would marry me, but he never did. He met the new woman and within a year they were married. Why her and not me? I talked to his last girlfriend and she said he had beaten her up many times. That didn't happen to me though. I did not get much of a golden period, but I can see on his Facebook that he's posting pictures of flowers he has sent her and other gifts, and wonderful places that he has taken her away to. Why didn't I get that? She often talks about how wonderful my sister is, but never talks about my achievements. He always talks about all the places he went to with his ex, but he never takes me anywhere. Why did she get all of that, and I did not? You may well be familiar with the difference of the manipulations that you've experienced compared to the person after you, or before you, or at the same time as you. Doubtless you'll recognise comments such as these, or variations of them. Why do we, as narcissists, behave in different ways with those in our fuel matrix? Remember, you are in the fuel matrix of the narcissist from the moment you are involved with us, and you operate different positions within that hierarchy. If you want to know more about that, read the book Fuel. But why is there this distinction in treatment? There are several factors, but they all lead to one outcome, which I shall explain to you a little further on in this video. But first, let's look at the factors. Number one, your status in the fuel matrix. It is important to establish where you sit within the fuel matrix. This can often be easy enough to ascertain, and as I've explained, my book Fuel will help you with that. But often it isn't, and therefore you can address that through the consultation, What's My Place in the Fuel Matrix, which you'll find in the Knowledge Vault. But if you know where you sit in the fuel matrix already, then understand that your position in the fuel matrix reflects the importance that you hold to us with regard to the provision of the prime aims. And, as a consequence, the higher you are in that hierarchy of the fuel matrix, as a general rule, the more varied, sustained and intense the manipulations, both benign and malign, will be. In essence, the more important you are to us in the fuel matrix, the more varied and intense the manipulations will be. So if you're the primary source, you get lots. If you're a tertiary source, for instance a stranger, we don't bother as much, and the range and intensity of the manipulations will be far less. So your status, your position in the fuel matrix, is one of the significant factors as to why there are these distinctions in treatment. Secondly, it depends upon whether you are painted black or white from our narcissistic perspective. 3. Where are you in the dynamic with the narcissist? Are you at the outset of seduction of an intimate nature? Or have you perhaps been embedded, and thus you remain in the golden period as the intimate partner primary source? Are you a friend, a non-intimate secondary source? Are you placed on the shelf by us as an intimate partner secondary source? Number 4, what is the nature of your interaction with the narcissist? Is there any interaction at all? And are you, when interacting, providing pure fuel, challenge fuel, or wounding? See the 3 interactions with the narcissist to understand more about that. Number 5, how large and accessible is the narcissist fuel matrix? Does the narcissist have other options besides you? How accessible are they? And to what extent will they satisfy the prime aims? 6, perception. You may perceive, through the warped lens of emotional thinking, that there is a considerable variance in behaviour, but you must revisit this and look for evidence. You may perceive that he is always buying your replacement gifts, but is he really? You are likely to find, when looking at this from an evidential point of view and rather just based upon perspective, that he's actually only bought her 2 gifts 2 or 3 times, but your emotional thinking took hold of, say, your narcissistic trait of envy and used it against you to suggest that there was actually a lot of gift buying going on, so that you would continue to engage with the narcissist as a consequence of this envy, annoyance, or sadness, and thus feed your addiction to the narcissist. 7, consider also instances where the basis of your comparison is information fed by the narcissist, him or herself. The narcissist tells you that, for instance, he went to Rome, Paris, Budapest, Copenhagen, and so forth with his previous girlfriend, whilst you get to go to Bognor Regis Butlins. But do you have any evidence that he actually took her to these places? Are there pictures of them in these locations, for instance? Remember, we will say and do anything in order to maintain control and obtain the prime things. And saying things is the easiest, fastest, and most efficient method available. I have lost count of the number of times that I have stopped people during consultations with me and asked, "But how do you know this?" And they respond with, "The narcissist told me." I then explain, of course, that this cannot be relied upon, and therefore they must seek independent evidence. Often they do so, and later confirm to me that the narcissist lied. These lies will be used in relation to benign and malign matters also. Accordingly, your perception may also be affected by the lies of the narcissist, so that you are led to believe that a different victim was treated better or differently, when in actual fact they were not. All of these factors influence the degree to which the narcissist manipulates you. But what do they all lead to ultimately? The completion of the prime aims, and in particular, control. The extent of the manipulation is linked to the necessity to assert control over the appliance. Take, for example, a tube of toothpaste. If the tube is full of toothpaste, you do not have to exert much pressure on the tube to get what you want, namely the toothpaste. A gentle squeeze, and out comes the minty plaque attacker. Conversely, if the tube is nearly empty, you have to squeeze from the very edge of the tube, possibly rolling it upwards in order to coax the last of the toothpaste out of the tube and onto your toothbrush. Comparatively, this takes a lot more effort to achieve the same outcome: toothpaste on the toothbrush. Similarly, the outcome that we want, and remember, lesser and mid-range is instinctive, greater and ultra, we know this, is control over you and others. If that control can be achieved with a gentle squeeze, then this is what happens. If we need to obtain that control through a more concentrated effort, with a sustained and intense squeeze, then this is what happens instead. We must have the prime aims, and chief amongst them is control. And because the circumstances that both 1, threaten our control in the first place, and 2, threaten the assertion of control, can and will vary considerably, then so does the type of manipulation applied. the extent and intensity of that manipulation, and the effort which is required to achieve what is necessary. Of course, in certain instances, we may decide that the tube of toothpaste is no longer working at all and throw it away, or that it is too much effort to squeeze those last drops of toothpaste out. We can pick up a new tube of toothpaste nearby far easier. Again, the achieving and maintenance of control will vary dependent upon the circumstances. If you are easy to control, then the variance and intensity of the manipulations, both malign and benign, will not be extensive because it's not necessary. We hate having to do more than is necessary. Indeed, we nearly always avoid such a situation. If you are far harder to control, then the assertion of control might be through a wider range of manipulations and of a greater intensity. In some instances, the effort is applied for a brief period of time, but the cost proves too great, so some of our kind will apply control by rejection. It might be silent treatment or disengagement, and will turn to a different appliance to provide the prime aims instead. Thus, let us return to the examples I gave you at the outset of this video. He said he would marry me, but he never did. He met the new woman, and within a year they were married. Why her and not me? Answer: because you could be controlled without the necessity of marrying you. So he did not. It was necessary to marry her to gain control. I talked to his last girlfriend, and she said he had beaten her up many times. That did not happen to me, though. Why? Because in order to control her, he used the manipulation, the rudimentary one that it is, of physical violence, and thus beat her up. In order to control you, that was unnecessary. I did not get much of a golden period, but I can see on his Facebook he's posting pictures of flowers that he sent to her and other gifts and places that he's taken her to. Why did I not get that? First of all, check the perception. Is it actually accurate, and that he has actually sent her all of these gifts? And if he did, it was necessary to do so to gain control. To gain control over you and the prime aims, it was not necessary, so it was not done. She often talks about how wonderful my sister is, but never talks about my achievements. The answer to this is because it's more effective to gain control over you by triangulating you with your sister and not giving you praise than it is to actually praise you. For all you know, your sister may be making precisely the same comment as you. He always talks about all the places he went with his ex, but he never takes me anywhere. Why did she get all of that and I did not? Again, check the evidence, and if it is accurate that it was necessary to take the ex to these places to gain control, it is easier to triangulate you by mentioning them to control you than it is to take you to these places to gain control. It is about the achievement of the prime aims, and chief amongst them, the control. The manipulations vary upon the need to assert and maintain control over you.